Bread. A simple food made from flour and water, but one whose journey has paralleled the rise and fall of civilizations. It is more than sustenance. It's a story baked into the very crust of human history. In the golden triangle of land known as the Fertile Crescent, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carved the landscape, humans made a fateful decision: to plant seeds. From that point on, history began to taste like grain. They discovered that when ground seeds were mixed with water and placed on a hot stone, they transformed into something hearty and edible. And when fermentation accidentally occurred, perhaps from wild yeast floating in the air, it made the dough rise, forming what we now know as leavened bread. It was accidental alchemy, a bubbling miracle, and it would never leave our diet again. The Egyptians took bread to new heights, literally, by building ovens and refining baking techniques, developing hundreds of varieties for the temple, the tomb, and the dinner table. Bread was placed alongside the dead, carried in baskets by the living, and exchanged as wages for laborers who stacked stone blocks into pyramids. The Romans industrialized it, with mills driven by donkeys and water and massive communal ovens feeding whole cities. They turned bread into a symbol of state benevolence and military strength. If Rome was an empire built on roads, it was fueled by loaves. Their bakers were so respected that they even formed one of the earliest known professional guilds. As religion emerged, bread followed. In rituals, in myths, in offerings, bread became holy. In Christian tradition, the Eucharist is not merely symbolic, it is transformation itself, bread as the body of Christ. In Judaism, bread is braided into challah for Sabbath, representing unity, peace, and the double portion of manna from heaven. In Islam, bread is handled with reverence. It is never discarded, and often kissed if dropped. Across Hindu temples, bread in the form of puris and flatbreads is offered to gods before being distributed to devotees, a sacred transaction of nourishment and grace. Across cultures, to bake was to bless. But when bread disappears, people rise. In pre-revolutionary France, flour prices soared while wages remained stagnant. Starving families looked at the soft white loaves of the aristocracy like distant dreams. The scarcity of bread wasn't just a kitchen crisis, it was political dynamite. "If there is no bread, let them eat cake," Marie Antoinette is said to have remarked, a phrase she never uttered, but which came to symbolize indifference in the face of desperation. In 1917, Petrograd, women waiting in freezing lines for bread, sparked the Russian Revolution. In colonial Bengal, faulty policies and wartime hoarding led to famine and death. Bread became not a symbol of sustenance, but of what happens when systems collapse. As humanity spread across the planet, bread evolved with it. In the Andes, maize became masa and the tortilla was born. In Ethiopia, teff grain rose into the spongy, tangy injera. In India, wheat flattened into roti and rose into puri. In Japan, soft milk breads and savory melon pans became everyday snacks. In France, the baguette was refined into a national symbol of crust and pride. In North America, cornbread carried African and indigenous traditions to southern kitchens. Even today, the same act, mixing flour and water, creates thousands of distinct breads. From steaming mantu to smoky pita, from oily paratha to crusty ciabatta, it's the same method adapted endlessly, a universal recipe shaped by local hands. In 1928, the bread slicer entered history, not quietly but boldly. Otto Rohwedder's invention was mocked at first. Who couldn't slice bread themselves? But soon, the appeal of pre-sliced loaves, convenient, tidy, uniform, swept the market. It was, as ads proclaimed, the best thing since, well, wrapped bread. And then came the toaster, the Toastmaster. Breakfast was never the same, but convenience came with a cost. Nutrients were stripped, preservatives added. Factory bread grew softer, sweeter, and further from the traditional loaf. For many, it was progress. For others, a decline. During World War II, bread became rationed. Governments dictated loaves, size, even ingredients. In Britain, the national loaf was gray, coarse, and unloved, but it kept people alive. In occupied Europe, people lined up for crusts. After the war, Science took over. Chlorinated flour, dough conditioners, enzymes and emulsifiers. Bread could now stay soft for weeks. Agriculture, too, transformed. Wheat became a global commodity. The Green Revolution introduced hybrid strains and mechanized farms. Fields that once grew for families now fed continents. But monocultures and chemical dependencies raised alarms. The more we produced, the more we worried about what we'd lost. Imagine a world without bread. No pizza, no croissants, no pancakes, no bagels, no holiday cookies, no sandwiches. Street food disappears. So do school lunches. Without grain, we lose not just calories, but culture. Even the metaphors vanish. Breaking bread, earning your daily bread, being the breadwinner. This is why, during every crisis, from pandemics to wars, bread disappears first and reappears fastest. Because we don't just need it, we crave it, culturally, spiritually, emotionally. A world without bread is not just empty, it is unrecognizable. Thank you for watching The Cook History. Subscribe for more deep dives into the foods that shaped our world.